Welcome to the Filmed Live Musicals podcast, a podcast about stage musicals that have been legally filmed and publicly distributed. The Filmed Live Musicals website contains information on nearly 200 musicals that have been captured live. Check it out at filmedlivemusicals.com. And now, on with the show. Welcome to episode 22 of the Filmed Live Musicals podcast. I am your host, Luisa Lyons. One of the unexpected joys of the pandemic has been discovering the incredible work of companies around the world who have shared their productions online. One such company is the North London-based Chickenshed, an inclusive company that creates extraordinary productions that are inventive, powerful, inspiring, and truly some of the best theatre I've watched over the past year. I'm thrilled to be joined today by Susan Jamson, Chickenshed Press and PR Manager, who in September will have worked with the company for 30 years. Welcome, Susan.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, it seems a lifetime.
Before we dive into Chickenshed's work, what made you fall in love with theatre?
I've always loved theatre. When I first left school, I was a travel agent, and a part of being a travel agent was selling theatre tickets. And being a poor travel agent, because they don't earn a lot of money, it was wonderful because I used to be able to go and see theatre whenever I wanted, free theatre. And I just fell in love with it. And actually, although I talk a lot, I'm incredibly shy. So theatre to me is something that's so exciting. I love cinema, but theatre is really special to me. So when I actually came to Chickenshed, it was like, whoa, this is what I really love. Better than travelling. I sort of like travelling.
Armchair travelling.
Yeah, it is.
So what led you to Chickenshed?
Well, I was a travel agent from the time I left school, and then I had my first child, and I wasn't a natural mother. I didn't think I was going to be a natural mother. I wanted children, but I didn't particularly at that point want to look after them. However, I know it sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? I had my daughter, and the moment I just, as you do, I fell in love with her. I was scared even to pick her up. They had to keep me in hospital for a week because I wouldn't pick her up because I'd never picked up a baby. So I had my first child. I know, ridiculous. But I told my work that I would go back to work, and I became like the Earth Mother of the world, in that I was breastfeeding her, but I still went back to work, and I used to put Catherine under the table and carry on working in travel. And then I had a second baby, and then I decided, right, I'm going to have to stop work. This is ridiculous. I've got two children, two little girls. And then when my girls were 6 and 4, I had my third baby, another little girl, and Emma was born with Down syndrome. And it was a huge shock to me, massive shock. I had her on a Sunday with a cesarean. I walked out the hospital the following day, not wanting to take Emma home. Yes, it was a massive reaction. It sort of wasn't in my lifestyle. I wasn't going to have this. This wasn't going to be my life. I was going to have my children. I was going to work. It never even occurred to me that I would ever have a child that had a disability. It just didn't occur to me. So I left her in the hospital, but being as I would seem to be a breastfeeding guru, my daughter wouldn't feed. So every 4 hours I had to go back into the hospital to feed Emma, but I refused to pick her up. I didn't pick her up. The nurses I used to take my 4-year-old with me. The nurses used to give me her, and I'd feed her, and then I'd go home, which was ridiculous, driving straight after having a cesarean, etc. And it was 4 days later when I went into the hospital, and the doctors were working on a new baby, and I couldn't ring the bell to ask them to pick Emma up, my baby up. So I went, she was crying. I'm just going to have to go and pick her up. So I picked her up and I fed her, and I looked at her and I thought, oh gosh, this is ridiculous. I'm just going to take her home, keep her for a year, and then send her back. That was my plan, really.
Where did you think you were going to send her back to?
I don't know. But at that time, I didn't know what I was going to do. So the worst bit is, remember, this is 37 years ago. nowadays, certainly in Britain, you've got to have all these special car seats and all sorts of things. I decided to take Emma home. So I picked her up. It was November. I picked her up, wrapped her up in a blanket, walked out the hospital with my 4-year-old, sat my 4-year-old in the back of the car and said, here, I'll hold Emma. And I drove home. My poor 4-year-old, traumatized. No, she wasn't traumatized. And that was it then. Emma was ours and we adore her. So I brought Emma home on the Thursday. She was born on the Sunday. I brought her home on the Thursday. And immediately when you have a child that has any sort of problems, you seem to have an absolute army of people that come and see your child. And they were all lovely, but they were all obviously concerned about me and saying, don't worry, everything will be fine. You can send your daughter off to special school. You won't need to do anything. People will come and help you. Everything will be fine. And if you don't want your daughter, there's a load of people that would want to adopt her, which was, I suppose, was nice that they told me that, because I didn't feel them pressured. Anyhow, people kept coming and telling, and I kept saying to people, gosh, you ought to see, look, Emma's smiling now, or Emma's doing such and such. And they'd never had a child with Down syndrome who'd been able to breastfeed, because they always said children got long, big tongues. But I fed Emma, no problem at all. And so everything I thought was going really, really well. When Emma was, and people still came, but when Emma was 2, I had a phone call where somebody said, we're going to pick up Emma, we're going to take her off to this special place. We'll pick her up at 8 o'clock, we'll give her breakfast, give her lunch, give her tea, drop her around back to you at 4:30. And I asked why, and they said, well, it'll give you a break. But I didn't want a break. My daughter was absolutely lovely, and I adored being with her. So, it was a strange time. And then it got to school time, and I was told that Emma couldn't go into mainstream school. The children like these, whatever these is, don't go into mainstream school. But I lived in a village, as I said, and I wanted Emma to go to the school along with her sisters. So I went to see the schools and asked if they'd take her, and they were a little bit apprehensive, but I went on the PA, that's the Parents Associations of Schools, and I cleaned windows and I read books to children and things so that they would get used to me having Emma and they wouldn't mind her going into school. And she did go into school, and, that seemed all right. And she actually could read quicker than most other kids, because she could read upside down as well as around the right way, which was great. Really was, honestly. It was such a, they wouldn't give her a word tin on the first day. And she was so upset when she came out, because every other child had a word tin. And I went in and said, please, can I have a word tin? And they went, oh, children like these don't read. And I said, I know, but can she just have a word tin, just like the others? And eventually she was reading, honestly, she was reading with other kids because she could read better. She's an amazing reader, most amazing reader. Anyhow, so life was going on reasonably well, but I wanted her to go to gym club, and they said yes, she could, but I had to go on the equipment. I wanted her to learn how to swim, but I had to go in the pool, and I can't swim, so that was like, the worst thing ever. But they didn't want Emma to go swimming without me. This was all insurance reasons. I wanted her to go to Rainbows, which is like brownies, but I had to go with her. I had to become a guide. It was ridiculous. Everything I had to do with Emma, because people didn't want her to do it on her own. And there wasn't anybody else in the village who had Down syndrome. So Emma was sort of the first one. And I really, really wanted to find something that my 3 kids could do together. If I'm honest, that my 3 kids could do together, and I could go and have a coffee, really, and just sit down and wave goodbye to my children, and somebody else would do something with them for an hour and a half. And I thought it was good for Emma as well. So somebody told me about Chickenshed and said, oh, you walked, and because I was such an annoying person saying, I just want Emma to be accepted like the others. Somebody told me about Chickenshed and said, there's this theatre company. It's amazing. They have people, all different sorts of people, really good, go and have a look. But it was miles away, it was like 35 miles away. And I didn't really want to go because, it was a long drive after school. But anyhow, this person bought me a ticket to go and see a show. and I went into London to see this show. And to be honest, I went to see what other kids with Down syndrome, how good they were, how mine compared, because I didn't know other people with kids with Down syndrome. And I sat down in the theatre and I started to watch this show. And I must tell you, it was quite a special show because Princess Diana was there, and she was no, so ridiculous. Me and Princess Diana. No, she was seeing the show because she'd heard about Chickenshed. So it was all very exciting for me. However, I went to see what other kids with Down syndrome are like, and within 5 minutes, I'd forgotten to look because the show was so phenomenal. Seriously, that feeling where you see theatre and your heart drops and you think, oh my God, that was so good. And I came out and I thought I was so cross with myself because I didn't look to see, how Emma was. And it was a children's show. It was called Anansi. And we'd done this show in the Royal Albert Hall with 1,000 kids from all over London. This wasn't the one I saw. I saw a special one that Diana had asked if we could do in a London theatre. So anyhow, I thought, right, that was good, but I bet that was just a one-off. So 6 months later, I went to see an adult show of the company because they take people of all ages, called The Attraction. And I sat down in the Shaw Theatre in London, and the lights went down and there were spotlights everywhere. And there was a requiem that was so strong. It did honestly make my heart just feel as though, God, this is so exciting. And I sat through this show and it was better than anything I'd ever seen, better than Les Miserables, it was just remarkable. And at the end of the show, and I took my kids with me, and at the end of the show, I sat in the bar because I wanted to see the actors. I wanted just to be near them because they were just so amazing. And I'd sat through now 2 shows. Up until then, my whole life, I reckon every single day I said the word Down syndrome somewhere in my conversation. But I watched this show and I didn't think about it. I just watched good theatre. And yes, there were people with Down syndrome. Yes, there were people, all different sorts of people. But the show and the performance and the production values, everything was phenomenal. So I came home and that night I wrote to Chickenshed and saying what I'm saying to you now, really, I have never seen anything like it. And I want one in High Wycombe where I live because this is what I want. I want this for all 3 of my kids. And at that point, there were 2 people that ran it, Mary Ward and Joe Collins, and they wrote back to me and said, why don't you come and see a workshop? Just come and see how we are. So I had to find this place, Palmer's Green, no idea where it was. I got my kids in the back of the car, fed them in the back of the car, got to the theatre, and that was it. My kids went into a workshop while I talked to Mary and Joe, and I've been coming ever since. So I know.
And now 30 years later.
Well, Emma was only 7 at the time, and she sat in the corner for probably about well over a month. And other kids would sit with her and they'd encourage her, and she would look up under her eyes to see what was happening. Because until then, wherever she went, she felt that she was special. There was something special about her. But at Chickenshed, she wasn't special. She was just another kid that went to the theatre. And anyhow, so she joined in the September, and in the November, we did another show. Again with Princess Diana there, and Emma was up there dancing, whatever, and it was the start of something that was amazing. So to be honest, I went there because not just for Emma, I went there for my 3 kids, because my middle one, when you've got a child that's got additional needs, sometimes you spend a lot more time with them than maybe you instead of sharing your time with your kids. And so my middle one was very shy. My older one was amazing, but a complete maniac, a child from hell, a 12-year-old from hell. And it was good for all of them, because suddenly we were a family doing something together. And, and both my kids now are teachers. My 2 older kids are teachers, and they teach in mainstream schools, but they have kids that have got additional needs, and it's not a big deal. So, Chickenshed's made such a difference to my life. And obviously, I mean, Emma's 37 now, and she works for Chickenshed. She delivers shows to early years, and she teaches, and she goes into schools and teaches. And there are other kids who maybe have got additional needs that see Emma and go, oh, you know, I can get to that. And it is just the best thing ever. And I don't think there's ever been a time. I know when I first used to come, I used to see a show and go, oh my God, that was the best thing I've ever seen. And 30 years later, I still come out of the shows going, that is the best show. And it's not me talking rubbish. It's me saying, and it makes such a difference to the people who see the shows and the people in the shows and people who maybe don't know anything about, including people, because it isn't just, we don't have just people who've got additional needs. We have a whole range, kids from and grown-ups from every background, every culture, every race, every religion, every ability, you name it, what you see in the streets of London, we have on the stage. So people who are in the audience can often go and watch something and see themselves. And that's what's important. It's just amazing.
How extraordinary. And what a journey you went on from the time Emma was born through all, from being told that she wouldn't be able to do anything and that she would be different from everybody else, to finding this extraordinary home away from home.
Absolutely.
That is not only accepting, but encouraging, and provides skills and employment, and provides, it's something even more tangible, more, what's the word I'm looking for? More special than just, practical skills is one thing, sure, but it's this community of people that want to make art and tell stories and be inclusive and a part of the community, and that is
absolutely
so special.
It is, it really is. But, it made such a difference to Emma's life, because throughout her schooling, she felt different. Schools, it's not their fault that, she was different to the other kids. She had Down syndrome. So whatever was in their brains, from seeing somebody with Down syndrome or hearing about it, that's the picture that they conjured up. But Emma went through school. I really fought to keep her in mainstream, and Chickenshed actually came. They were so kind, because when she went to secondary school, there were no other children apart from one little boy whose dad was a headmaster. There were no children that went into secondary school at that stage who had got Down syndrome. But Emma, could do things. She could, all three of my children could do different things, and Emma can do things that the others couldn't do. And then she couldn't do, she's like me with sums. She can't see naught. She can't add up. And I'm exactly like that. I can't say anything other than she's like me. So anyhow, Chickenshed, they were so kind, because Chickenshed isn't just a theatre. I should say that first of all. Chickenshed isn't just a theatre. It started off as the reason why it's called Chickenshed is because it started in a chicken shed. The two people that I wrote to, Mary and Joe, went to church. Mary in just around the corner from here, and Mary was a primary school teacher, and Joe was a musician, and she played on, I don't know if you know it, she played on amazing albums like Tubular Bells. Do you know Tubular Bells?
Ah, yes.
I know.
Really?
Exactly. She played on Tubular Bells. And she was a session musician, a very good musician. And the two of them used to go to church together. And Mary had just moved in because she'd had a little boy into the area. And they used to go to church and talk about one day starting a theatre group. And there was a lady called Lady Elizabeth Byng who used to go to church. And she owned a great big country estate called Rotham Park, where they made the film Gosford Park. So just in case you saw it. And she said, well, I've got an old chicken shed on my grounds. Why don't you use that? And Mary and Joe went to have a look, and it was an amazing space because you could make theatre anywhere. So the kids that used to go used to say, we're going to the chicken shed. We're going to Chickenshed, and it became Chickenshed. And Mary and Joe always said that when we became posh, they would change the name, but we've never become posh, really.
Oh,
we can't change the name. It's a bit, I know. But anyhow, we were in the chicken shed for about 5 years, and then Lady Elizabeth being sold the property, so we had to find other places to go to, and we went to church halls. But it was difficult because church halls, you have to jiggle around brownies and, I don't know, playing cards and all sorts of things. So that was, I know, it's so difficult. And they never knew where we were. But anyhow, one of the kids that came went to school with Judi Dench's daughter. And they used to do beautiful stuff. And the music, when they used to come to pick the kids up, the music would just sing out from the church halls. And Judi Dench and Michael Williams saw Chickenshed and said, "Oh gosh, you've got to one day find a home for you. You can't keep dodging like this." And they brought in John Alderton and Pauline Collins. Pauline Collins did that thing from Greece, where she's an older lady and she goes off the rails and meets a beautiful Greek person. I can't think of the film, but they're in England. They're really good actors, and they said that they were going to try and help us to raise the money to find our own home. And they were friends with a lady called Lady Jane Rain. Lady Jane Rain was the lady in waiting at the Queen's wedding. The Queen's coronation. And so, a lady, and lords and ladies always have a charity. And Lady Rain decided that she would make us her charity. And Lady Rain was married to Max Rain, who was the chairman of the National Theatre. So we had really great theatre people behind us. And they worked, I know, it shows how good our theatre is, honestly. Trevor Nunn once came to see our Midsummer Night's Dream and went, "I wish I could do that. That is just so good." I know. So many stories. Over 30 years, I've got so many stories. Anyhow, so they helped us to raise money to build our theatre. Lady Rain knew Princess Diana and said, "Would you like to come along? I know this theatre group and I think you'll like them." As you know, Princess Diana always wanted to be a ballerina. And she came to Chickenshed, and of course she saw all sizes, all heights, all abilities. And she said, if I'd had a Chickenshed when I was young, I could have been a ballerina. So she became our patron, and people paid loads of money to go and sit in the same room as her, the same theatre, watching a show, because we thought it was because they wanted to see Chickenshed, but I think it was probably because they wanted to see Princess Diana. So that's where we would have got our theatre. We would have built our theatre anyhow, but we were able to get it quite a bit quicker, really. And we're also, it's really a funny story because, even since I've been here, like when we have people from abroad that the Prime Minister wants to, not Boris Johnson doesn't know us, but the Prime Minister wants to show what Chickenshed is like, or what the country is like, we're often asked to go and perform because they can say, this is Chickenshed. It's an example of what Britain is today, because we are really diverse, and we do show what the country is like, that it is such a multicultural country, and multi-ability, multi-everything. So we really do demonstrate that with our work, which is wonderful. So we built this theatre, which is beautiful. It's in North London. It's got 4 performance spaces. It's not very big, and it was a very small space. We had a barbecue, and we went, oh my God, this is so tiny. But obviously Mary and Joe had a real idea of what they wanted to build. It's completely accessible, and it's absolutely beautiful. And we love it. So we're very lucky. And so now Mary and Joe said, we can't ever have, kids not being educated. It's not right. So when we moved into the theatre, a year after we moved in, we started a BTEC course. And then we did a foundation degree, and we do a BA honours. But and it's exactly the same as any university degree that you can get anywhere in the country, except in the rest of the country, I don't know what it's like in America, but the rest of the country, you have to have so many qualifications, so many exams to be able to take a BTEC, to be able to take a foundation, and to be able to get a BA honours. At Chickenshed, you don't need to have anything. You just have to have a love of theatre. So we say that your life experience is what should encourage you to come on the courses. So, for example, although Emma went through mainstream school, she only came out with performing arts, surprisingly enough, as a GCSE. But she came here and she did the BTEC, she did the foundation, she did the BA, and she's now got a 2-2 BA honours in performance, where that's never happened before. And she did it off her own merit. She had to take a little bit longer to do it, but Chickenshed look at absolutely every individual and make sure that the education fits that person. We don't have failures, and we have a 98% retention rate, and 66% of our young people wouldn't be accepted onto any other course anywhere else. But here they get a qualification, which means that then they can go off feeling proud with this piece of paper saying, okay, can you employ me? So we help people to get education. And it's just, honestly, I watch the kids come in every year, and then I watch them at their graduation, and it is the most wonderful thing. Wonderful thing. Yeah, I can't say enough about it.
I wish that my listeners could see your face, because it is glowing. Susan has this giant smile and she's just glowing. It's so beautiful to see that. I can see how invested and how much this work means to you.
It does. It means so much, and it means for the kids, and because we're in London, or just outside London, we're in a part of London where there is a lot of problems with young people. We've got a knife crime problem here, and we have had some kids that have been killed through knife crime. But we now, as well, we bring kids in from in fact, social services ask us to take kids that don't want to go to school, don't want to be educated, but all kids like rapping, like music, like, that sort of thing. So they ask us if we can take young people, and we mentor them, because our staff are very young. We make sure that our staff are hardly older than the kids that come here. Because as an older woman, if I asked people not to take drugs, not to pick up a knife, they would look at me as I'm some sort of idiot. But when you've got young people who have done it, been there, gone through it, and they're talking to other young people. So we've got kids that really have been written off by education and by society, basically, that we then bring in. And it isn't a quick fix. It really isn't. It doesn't happen overnight. We work with them, we help them. And then you've seen our films, they're on stage. They're on stage and they're achieving something, doing something they love. And they then are able to talk to other young kids who maybe are going through the same thing, but they've been through it. They've experienced it. So although, yes, we are a theatre is a way that we can help, especially young people, to get back into life, to feel respectful of themselves, to feel that, there is a future for them. There's nothing worse than young people thinking there's nothing for them. It's terrible. So I think that's one of the biggest things that Chickenshed does. And even through lockdown, we've been in lockdown since, we're not now, but we're back. But even during lockdown, every single workshop, session and lesson continued online. We learnt these skills that we'd never known. And often the kids helped us with the skills, but we delivered all of the workshops, all of the sessions and all of the performances. And now we've got a project with Helsinki and New York and us, and we've got another project in Jerusalem, which at this time is something that is, we want to work with young people from Jerusalem, regardless of whether they're Jewish or Arab or whatever. We're working over there as well. We work in China, we work in Russia. So it's huge now. I don't think any of us, seriously, I don't think any of us do. I'm enthusiastic, as you can tell, but I wish you could walk around the building, because you would see that I am just one of a lot of people that are just as enthusiastic as me,
Oh,
because it
this
works.
just extraordinary. So prior to the pandemic, you were working with over 1,000 children
Yes.
at the London
Yes.
building, and then a further about 5,000 through your outreach programs.
That's right. Yes, we've got full-time students, 200 full-time students at any one time. Then we've got a membership of around about 800. Then we've got an adult workshop. During the pandemic, we did a special thing we've been doing this thing called The Space Between Us, where we work with older people. We bring our older people to work with younger people because we found that there was a big gap, and a lot of younger kids were saying, "Oh, old people, they don't understand us," and old people say, "Young children, oh, look at them, look what they're doing now." So we actually did this ridiculous thing, which was amazing, where the slightly older people came in and we worked with them, and then we worked with the younger people. Then we got them to speak to each other, to write to each other, saying, "If you looked at me," we didn't say anything about them, but we said, "If you looked at me, you'd probably think." And then we got them to write to each other, and then we brought them together to meet, and then they put on a show together, and it was based on the Beatles, but it was just amazing. And these people now, all through the pandemic, have been writing to each other. We've done this thing called Living Letters. So yeah, we've got that group, and then we work we work across London. We take out our thing called Crime of the Century and Day One Big Score, which is knife crime. We also work with women who have been, in fact, women and men who have been subjected to domestic abuse. We work with special schools and mainstream schools and bring them together, because often they don't come together, but we do workshops where they come together. And so we work all the way across the country. And Wales, been working in Wales with in villages in Wales with again domestic abuse. So it is big.
It's it's like it's even bigger than I can't conceptualize how massive your programming is. So the pandemic hit and you had to go into lockdown. What made the company decide to put work online?
We had to. We had all these people that were coming, and we couldn't not. To many of these young people, we are a lifeline to them. So we couldn't just stop. So we found Zoom straight away, and honestly, we're so clever. We made Tails TV, so we've got a TV channel for our early years, and we did workshops online where they would work online with us. All of our lessons were online. They made films. I've got the most amazing films. They kept making films, which some of them we put on YouTube, but not all, obviously, because they're lessons. But they worked just fantastically together. And now it's taught us that for all our future shows, we're going to record them. We put out a lot of our shows online, but they weren't filmed for us to record, to put out. You've seen some of them. They were filmed because of archive. That's right. But you can see, but now we've learned the skills of filming with multi-cameras. So we will film everything so that people, across the world can see our work, but in a better quality. Yeah. It's, we want it to be as good quality as it is on stage. It's very different, but, we are filming everything.
Was it because the footage was archival footage that you decided to make it free rather than charging people to see the productions?
No, I don't think we would have charged anyhow. Obviously, we've got to make money. That's obvious. But it was a pandemic, and a lot of people have struggled, and we want theatre to be accessible. That's our whole thing, accessible to everybody. So I don't think we would have charged. We did charge for, I think, monologue. We did, but that was because we actually were opening and then we couldn't open. It's been a struggle for us. Obviously, it's been a struggle. We're not making, money. We're lucky that we have a lot of supporters, and a lot of the parents support us as well. But it's still a struggle. And obviously now we've got to start what we're doing. We've opened and we're doing Sunday Shed. which we've never done before, which is normally we have a membership and we've got a waiting list, but now we're actually doing workshops on Sundays and on Saturdays and all through the summer holidays. And then we are doing it next week. We've got half term, so we're doing summer shorts, everyday workshops for kids, and they're drop-ins. So people don't have to now they do have to be a member if they want to come to our membership, but they can just drop in, come and join and do an hour and a half's workshop. And then for some of the workshops, we're actually putting on a performance at the end of 13 weeks. So these kids who've never done theatre, we'll put on a performance for them. So yeah, it has, for all theatres, it's been difficult. But we didn't stop. So yeah, but I don't think we would have charged for our films.
The exception to the archival recording was Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, which in 2005 you partnered with Liberty Bell and Sky.
Yeah, that's right.
What led to that partnership?
It was funny, really. We all the way through, being a theatre or being a company is a bit like being a child. You take your steps as you're growing up, and we got this theatre, and we. To begin with, we used to bus people in. We used to say, "Come and see our show. We'll bus you in." And then we got the reputation, like me seeing the shows, how good they were, and our shows then started to sell out. In fact, we used to put them up for sale, and we used to have a queue around the building wanting to book their tickets, which was lovely. And in a way, I suppose we became a little bit blasé, and at one point we weren't in trouble, but we owed some money, and we didn't want to get into a situation where when you owe money, the only way you can go really is to owe more money if you borrow money. So we did our Christmas show, and then we stopped, and we went and did cabarets, because we're always asked to go and do cabarets for companies. So we went to places like Coutts Bank. They asked us to go, all the big Goldman Sachs, you name it, they asked us to go and do a cabaret. And one of those was Sky. We pitched for Sky, and James Murdoch came along, and he absolutely loved what we did. And we pitched to become a charity partner, and we were able to offer workshops to places where they had like factories or whatever. So we worked up in Scotland, in a very poor part of Scotland, and we started branches, not branches, but we workshopped up there. And in exchange, so it was a partnership. So they said they would give us money. I think it was £1 million over 3 years if we would allow them to film our shows, and if we would deliver workshops around the country to places that they wanted to join with, which is what we did. So they then came and they filmed Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. So that was a really good recording, because we had loads of cameras and things, which we couldn't afford to do. So we were their partner for 3 years, which was great. And then, so although we stopped doing our shows, we only stopped doing our shows during the middle of the year. So we did our Christmas show, then we stopped until November, and then we did the next Christmas show. So it was just a little blip in the middle, but it taught us, this is how we have to work. I think if we could, we would like to offer what we do to everybody, because we know that it makes sense. But we have to be financially stable, and we have to, charge for our shows, which I know we wouldn't want to. I can remember when I first started, I think they used to do £5 or pay what you can. It was great, but you're growing up and you're learning the business. But now we're a proper big business, which is beautiful.
You said that going forward, you would film all your shows. Do you know what the camera setup will be?
We've bought some equipment. I don't know how it will work, but we've got and they're all young. Honestly, most of our staff are. I'm the oldest person in the building. The staff are all very young, and they're all very technically minded. And we're very lucky that we've got people who can help us. We can ask, various companies to help us, to show us how to work it. But we filmed Monologue in February. It was meant to be a show that we opened with. But we couldn't open. We had another lockdown. So we filmed that. We also filmed Mr. Stink, David Walliams' Mr. Stink. We opened with, in fact, 3 shows, ridiculous, 3 shows in December. And within 2 weeks we were locked down again. So we had to close, but we filmed the shows. So we were able to put those out online. So we will definitely film. It's good for us to film. It's another way. At the moment, people can only come and see Chickenshed, or tend to only come and see Chickenshed if they live within, 40 or 50 miles of us. But we obviously, working in Helsinki, working in Finland, working in New York, working in Israel, working in China, it would be good to be able to film our stuff and use that and let people see that. But it won't take away from live theatre, but it's just enhancing. It's a different way. It's not television. It's not film. We're filming to live. So it's a new format. And I think a lot of theatres will do that now.
Oh, I really hope so. What would you say to other companies who are hesitant to stream their work?
I think it's sad if they are hesitant. I think that there's been a lot of streaming, and it doesn't have to be, you're a member of Scene Saver and I watch their shows. They don't have to be technically films, like you see in the cinema. I think the joy of it is seeing what people can produce. That's the joy of live theatre, seeing what people can produce and almost being a part of it. And when you see it streamed, you do feel that you are still a part of it. It's very different. And I think people should bite the bullet and stream if they can. I think it's difficult it's a learning process, but then theatre is a learning process. I think it's, there's so many good shows and so many good writers and, such a lot of creativity around that it's good to be able to share that. And I think in this time after the pandemic, I think we've shown how small the world is and how alike we all are. And I think we need to see other people's cultures, other people's thoughts, other people's ideas, and then be able to chat about it, because communication is what keeps the world peaceful. It's when you haven't got communication that you get the problems, and we need to now rebuild after the pandemic, I think.
Absolutely. Do you think, you mentioned you have a big support base through your parents and people that are just supporters of the theatre. Has putting work online or making it available on YouTube or through Scene Saver, has that helped donations?
Yes, it has, definitely. It has, and do you know what? Sometimes, especially with Chickenshed, because we do things beautifully. We make our own costumes, we make our own sets, but they look phenomenal. And we're also really lucky that we have, certain people that support us, within the business. So a lot of people see us as being incredibly wealthy. We really, really are not wealthy. I promise you. I do press and PR. I don't have a budget. I rely on goodwill of people to promote us. And I think by putting it online, and people who don't see all of that other bit, can see that we are a theatre that's, doing really good work, and it's worth supporting that. We fulfill an awful lot of criteria in this world, and which is good that people have wanted to support us. We've got this very small fundraising team who are all exactly like me, incredibly passionate, and they've worked tirelessly throughout the pandemic, getting new things in the way to support us, where they're actually joining with us to work with us, and they've really helped to keep us going, and we've been incredibly lucky. It is lucky, but we've worked really hard for it. We really do. It would be very easy when you've got the mix of people that we have in our theatre to go along oh, look at us, we're doing this, we feel so privileged to have the mix of people we have in our theatre. We are the luckiest theatre in the world because we always say it's like a paint palette. You know, if you have a paint palette and you have 5 colours, you can make a beautiful picture. We've got a paint palette of 1,000 colours, and we can make the most spectacular picture you have ever seen. And so we're lucky, you know, we are incredibly lucky to have this base of people, this wonderful group of people that want to be here, love what they're doing. And I mean, I work upstairs, and just to the side of me is the auditorium. And, you know, we've got our students back in now, and just sitting, working and hearing the music and hearing the voices and hearing the laughter is fantastic.
That's
It's
the
a good
most
place to
magical
be.
thing.
It is. It is magical. Honestly, it is magical. And you know, if we ever feel a bit fed up, we go in and watch our Tales from the Shed show, which is our interactive shows for 0 to 6, and come out of that going, whoa, that was good. You know, it's and like in our bar, some of the students go and rehearse, so people can come in and have a drink and suddenly find there's, you know, 25 students doing something. It's like this creative, magical place where you never know what's going to happen next, but it happens. And it's, you come in the morning with a smile. I promise you, it sounds so twee, and it sounds as though, what are you on? But I'm really, you come in the morning and you smile, and then you get all these people coming through the office and you smile, and you go home at night and you think, that was pretty good.
So all those companies out there that are putting out these, you know, empty statements, oh, we want to be more inclusive, we want to have a more diverse population. Chickenshed are doing it. They are walking the walk.
Yeah, honestly,
it's being done.
And it works. And it works. And and you watch the people, you know, we've got kids, you know, we've got people who are in some of the West End shows. We've got people who, I think one works for Google. But, you know, we've got kids that maybe you never thought would ever go out, and they are changing the world. They're, you know, the young children are going into their schools and they're talking about what we do here, and it's changing the way people think. It's changing the voice of people. And yeah, don't moan about it, just do it. Just go and do it, and be diverse, and let everybody work together, because they forget any differences. They get on stage and their one thing is that they want the audience to clap them. And people who have been, you know, disregarded and told that they're not going to achieve very much, they come here and they go on stage and people stand and clap. Nobody's ever done that to them. They've only ever told them what they can't do. And yet people are standing and clapping, and they're going, really? This is, you know, and we all need a bit of, you know, you've done well here. This is great. To make us feel that we want to do something else. Really, we could go that next step, because we've already done this step.
What the world needs now is Chickenshed.
I think it is. I think it should be a word that everybody has in their mind. Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah,
and listeners can see a tip of the iceberg of Chickenshed's amazing work on YouTube and on Scene Saver: Rapunzel, Peter Pan, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, Sleeping Beauty, Dream On, Crime of the Century, The Midnight Gang, Blowing in the Wind, 100% Chance of Rain, Waiting for the Ship to Sail, and Tales TV. That's quite a lot already there, but it's the tip of the iceberg of what you're doing. Susan, this has been so much fun. I have a few questions that I ask all my guests.
Okay.
First up, do you have a favorite musical?
Yes. Oh gosh, it's so difficult. It's so difficult. Let me think, because there's too many that I absolutely. I obviously love Les Miserables. I'm trying to think. I've seen so many. What do I like? I like the normal ones. I like the ones, because we always do different ones. So I do like going into the West End and seeing all the stuff that you see. I like Cats, you know, and all of those. I love Andrew Lloyd Webber stuff and Tim Rice. So yeah, it's too difficult. There's a lot of good work.
My answer always changes depending on the day, my mood. So
yeah, exactly.
Do you have a favorite filmed live musical? So a stage musical that's been filmed live in the theatre?
I did like I did enjoy seeing Hamilton. I thought Hamilton was just amazing, and I thought it was as good filmed as it was live. I liked it live, but yeah, I thought Hamilton was just phenomenal.
Mm.
Yeah, beautiful.
You mentioned earlier that being watching it on screen is obviously not the same as being in person, but it can create its own experience. So if a filmed show, it's not exactly a film, it's not exactly a live stage show, what should we call it?
I don't know. I have thought of that. Really, it's really funny because I wanted to go and see James Corden's. I can't think. Yeah,
One Man, Two Governors?
That's right. Because my daughter went to school with him, so he knows Emma really well. We live in the same village, and I watched it on YouTube, and thought that it was wonderful. I really enjoyed it, and I did think I don't know what you should call it because it's live theatre, streamed live theatre, but there needs to be a catchy name for it. But I think there is definitely a market for it. I hope it goes because I would love to see stuff that's in New York. I would love to see stuff from China and different countries that I will never get to see. I'd love to see opera from, things that I really would love to see that I probably wouldn't get to see and be lucky if you happen to be there to catch it. So it would be lovely if they could stream.
Well, how are you going to get there when you're working 27 hours a day to put on all this programming?
I know. It's so ridiculous. I've got so much holiday due to me. I think I've got 31 years of holidays.
And then some.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on bootlegs?
It's difficult, isn't it? I think people, I don't know. I couldn't say. I think theatre is something that you share with everybody, and so yeah. If it encourages somebody, then maybe it's not that bad. Is that awful? Is that the wrong thing to say?
There are no wrong answers.
Oh.
What do you wish had been filmed?
What show do I wish had been filmed? I would have liked more of the West End films to have been filmed, and more of the National Theatre's stuff to be filmed. Some of it was, but it was all the things that they felt we wanted to see, which is right. But there are an awful lot of other stuff that I wish had been filmed, and I wish they'd put them out. And I wouldn't have minded even if they'd put them out if they hadn't been filmed well, because we were all prepared, I think, to watch stuff knowing that it wasn't filmed for release. So I wish they'd put a lot more shows out. And in a way, I would have liked to have seen it because some of the shows I've seen have got different people in them. So I would have liked to see Anne and Juliet. But yeah, I would have liked to. Yeah, it's a shame they didn't put more out.
Oh, I completely agree. Put everything out.
Maybe they will. But I think that you could almost have like a stream of things that have been released that weren't due to be released. A whole section of theatre that we now realise that you'd like to see this and we'll put this out is not well filmed. Yeah.
Well, I think of Amelia the play, which was at the Globe, and it was an archival recording. The sound wasn't great, and they put a warning at the beginning. This recording was made for archival purposes. The sound isn't ideal. We recommend closed captions. And it was like one of the best things that I saw during lockdown. It was fantastic. And really? I'm so glad I got to be able to see it because I don't live in London anymore. And it's, I wouldn't have seen it had they not streamed it, had they just not decided it doesn't matter that it's not great quality. We're still going to put it out there.
I really agree. I think we're too prone to thinking that things have to be really, really well made because of the films and because of all the technical things that they can now do on films. They can make people different heads, different body, they can do all sorts of things. And I think that theatre, even when it's not recorded for release, is still really good. As long as you can hear it, or even if they put subtitles on, I think you can still see it and see how it works. And it is so important to do that.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
I hope they continue.
On that note, what would you like to see filmed in the future?
Gosh, I'd like to see all the Chickenshed stuff filmed. I would. I would like to go back and do an awful lot of our shows again and film them, because we tend to write our own stuff and it's such good work. So yeah, I don't know what else I'd like to see. See, you haven't warned me, so there's too many things that I would like to see filmed.
I would also love to see
will.
more Chickenshed things. And how are you going to bring back all your hundreds and thousands of cast members
Well, that's the thing.
to restage your shows?
That is a problem. But we did for our education, we brought back 5 shows that we worked with the young people. We showed them our archival stuff and then we reproduced it for our students. And things grow and things change. And it was beautiful to see them doing crime when we actually filmed it. And now these young people are doing it and just putting their take on it. So it won't matter that we haven't got the originals. I think it's lovely to revisit them and then, do it again. And life has changed a bit too. So we can add bits. We're doing this year for our Christmas. We haven't released it yet. We did a show called Grim Nights and Ever After Days, and we're doing Ever After Days. So we're sort of reviving that one for Christmas, we hope, if we can stay open. So yeah, it's exciting. I think we will bring back some of our show. I think because so many people have wanted to watch them, and even the ones we've put out, some of them have been quite old, and they've wanted to see them again. I think it would be good to do some of the stuff that we've written and we know is good. I want to do our Shakespeare again, because our Midsummer Night's Dream was all sung and it is beautiful. It is, and we don't have an unhappy ending, so I'm not going to tell you the ending, but we don't, our Midsummer Night's Dream. No, Romeo and Juliet, we don't have an unhappy ending. We have a very, a different ending, and that's all sung as well. They're beautiful. Our Shakespeare stuff is beautiful.
Oh,
and the kids love it, because they go Shakespeare, and then the way we do it is just brilliant.
Oh, yes, please. I would love to see those.
They're lovely. We're good with Shakespeare.
Where can we find Chickenshed online?
Online, www.chickenshed.org.uk.
Fabulous.
And Chickenshed YouTube, just put Chickenshed YouTube and it comes on.
Everyone should absolutely go and check out their amazing work. It's really some of the best stuff I've seen over the pandemic, and I'm so glad that I hate that the pandemic happened, but I'm so glad that it led me to companies like yours.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, I hope you'll come and see us when you're back in England, and I hope we'll come to New York.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Susan. This has been really, really wonderful chatting with you today.
That's a pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Filmed Live Musicals is a labor of love, and we'd like to thank everyone who makes it possible. Thank you to our patrons, Josh Brandon, Mercedes Esteban, Rachel Esteban, James T. Lane, David Negrin, Jesse Rabinowitz and Brenda Goodman, Al Monaco, David and Catherine Rabinowitz, and Beck Twist for your support. If you'd like to support Filmed Live Musicals, please like and review on your podcast app. Find us on Twitter at Musicals on Screen and on Facebook at Filmed Live Musicals. If you'd like to support the site financially, you can find us at patreon.com/musicals on screen. No matter what level you're able to pledge, you receive early access to written content and early access to this very podcast. Visit www.filmedlivemusicals.com to learn more. Thanks for listening.